Hi folks, thanks for joining me again. This video is slightly different from the usual. It's an interview style format, very similar to what I was alluding to from my previous video where I'm joined by Adam, a recruiter in the tech industry, where we're looking to start working a little bit closer together to interview other people out and about in the field and to get their thoughts and feelings on up-and-coming trends, industry trends, but also to understand about their careers and the journey they've been on. This session is more so exploration between myself and Adam, talking about our backgrounds and why we've decided to start working together. If you hear something that you think is really exciting, or maybe you've got some topics for future videos, or even if you want to be part of the next few, leave a comment below or reach out to us via LinkedIn. Hope you enjoy the video, hope it goes well, and look forward to seeing you again in future videos. I'll just start recording. So we can obviously start talking about whatever and introduce a podcast and so on, but also we can put a video at the front of this, or I can do one separately and put it on to introduce it. But I think what would be useful really is to just talk and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I suppose for the viewers, it'll be a case of let's introduce ourselves, figure out what works, what doesn't, and what by that I mean talk about, I think, your journey, why you do what you do, why you think about doing a podcast now. Likewise from my side, a bit of my journey, why I do what I do, how our paths have crossed, and then go from there.
100%, yeah. And there's obviously questions that we can pop into that as well. So like you was talking about, your roles that have moved from here to there, and obviously from my side of things, that got me thinking as to, okay, so why did that happen and how did that happen?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing, which I think is quite interesting, because you can read someone's LinkedIn and be like, oh cool, that it all seems to make sense, but there's obviously a story and a journey behind that as well, as to why people have made those decisions, moved to here, moved to there, gone into various points of their career, or in your case, technologies and job roles and things like that. So that's the thing that interests me. It's all the story behind that and the people element, and the whys. So I think that's what kind of grips me, and I think when I speak to candidates and clients, that's the stuff that we're generally talking about, because there's always, taking it back to recruitment, which I'm trying not to talk about, but there's always something there that makes someone want to do something, whether they're moving jobs, whether they're looking for, I don't know, salary increases or certain technologies. There's always a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just about asking the right questions, talking to people, and sometimes they don't even realise that there's a reason.
So one of the things I've found. So I'm doing a university course at the moment.
Cool.
ODMA, so Organisation Departmental Management Apprenticeship. I think that's what it is. But essentially what you're doing as part of that is you start understanding what motivates people. That's one aspect. It's sort of a module one where you're looking at, different motivational models and a whole load of other stuff. It comes down to ultimately, as a team leader, you want to get the most out of about your team, about why they're doing the thing that they're doing, why do they come in the morning, what makes them tick, what makes them drive. I suppose from a recruitment perspective, it's very similar in the sense of, why are you making this decision at this point in time? What are you looking to get out of this? And when you start looking at the motivational side of things, you can kind of break it into kind of two different areas. There's sort of your intrinsic motivational factors and your extrinsic motivational factors. You look at the extrinsic side of things, where you're maybe looking at potentially, I don't know, money. Could be something. Oh, there's more money there. I'm going to go for the thing that's more money because it's short term. It's going to give you what you need. But the reality is, I mean, I've seen it when I've recruited people. You look at their job history, and it's sort of they're 3 months in one role, and they move to the next one, then they move to the next one, and it's kind of an element of, obviously everyone's situations are unique, but oftentimes it can be down to I just want more money. And it's a very real thing with everything that's happening in the economy at the moment. Then more money will definitely help. It definitely helps. The intrinsic motivational factors are slightly different in the sense that yes, money might be an aspect, but working with a team of people, so you feel like you've got a sense of belonging, which means that you're likely to put in a bit more time over the weekends or outside of work, or you're going to go on that, I don't know, you're going to go on a night out with your colleagues type thing, as opposed to just your mates. You know, I think those intrinsic factors is what really maybe pushes people to go, oh, why am I doing this thing in the first instance? And I think when we talk about people moving jobs, there's an element of, in my world, the reason I want to move jobs is usually down to I want to take on more accountability because I want to have a larger impact on a business. I kind of want to make my mark. I want people to go, you know what, Jay kind of knows what he's talking about here. I want his opinion. I want to come to him for advice and guidance. And everything that I'm doing is trying to move more and more to that model of I'm seen as a leader in an industry and so forth. And again, I think I don't know, from your perspective, when you're speaking to candidates, what do you think their motivational factors are usually?
It's really varied. So it depends on what level you're speaking to people at, but a lot of it is, you know, going back to what you mentioned earlier, money will only fix certain things. You know, we see things, counter offers in the industry where I'm not going to throw any fake facts out there because that you see that on LinkedIn enough, but there is reasons why people accept them, and then eventually they'll probably move on because they'll realise that, hold up, it's not the money that made me want to leave. It's the fact that, you know, there's no step for me in progression. There's nowhere else for me to go in the business. Maybe the team's not right for me. It's those sort of factors. You know, you've exactly what you mentioned. You've got to be in a place that, well, for me, I like being in a place that, you know, there's no kind of ceiling effectively. So where I want to go, I can take it. Also, for me, a really important thing is belonging, being in a team that I think, you know, gets to Friday at 4:00 and I'm like, you know what, we've had a great week, let's go for a beer or a bit of food. Or on the other hand, we've had a rubbish week, guys, let's go for that beer or a bit of food anyway, just to kind of bring it back up and that morale. So, you know, there's various reasons, but from a candidate perspective, everyone's different. See, the market's been really up and down. The last 12 months, you know, it's not a, you know, it's not a, you know, not a lie or anything. Everyone knows that the market is a little bit stagnant at the minute. It is increasing, I believe, but, you know, I suppose we'll see over the next 12 months how that goes.
When you say stagnant, is it more so that people aren't looking to move, or is it a case of people are looking to move but maybe the jobs aren't to what they're expecting and therefore they don't move?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think that it's the fact that some people are wanting to move but the roles aren't there, or it's also the fact that you know, the salaries aren't paying what they were 2 years ago. You know, after that COVID boom, you know, there were kind of mid-level kind of devs getting salaries of kind of 60, 70k, whereas that's kind of dropped down to kind of 50k, which, you know, I've seen job ads the other day. I seen a job ad and it was advertising a mid dev 35 to 50k, which is a, you know, previously be looking at that's a junior to mid type person. So the kind of goalposts have shifted quite a little bit.
There's a bit of I suppose it's a bit of shock as well, where if you do have this sort of this crisis which is going on, where things are becoming more expensive and it's harder to maintain the, I suppose, your same levels of life, that same level of, you know, being able to go out and buy what you usually buy, go to activities that you usually go to, then saying, right, well, your job in the industry is now worth less based on, you know, the industry, based on the organisation or whatever else. Can be, I suppose, a bit of a shock. But I suppose moving slightly away from recruitment and more to yourself. So how did you get into recruitment, and why do you do it? What motivates you?
Good question. So for me, I was actually in tech for 5 years. So came in to work for a really small business at the time, GreenSafe IT. Joined them as pretty much a bit of everything, to be honest. We were fixing and selling laptops, we were selling them on eBay, we were going to the gadget show, going to trade shows, you know, kind of selling IT equipment with the vision to then get into IT services. So then I kind of moved into that IT services space, went into, you know, really large clients, did things like data center migrations. So, you know, I was on one client site for 2 years, for various sites doing a migration. So that was cool, but I enjoyed the tech side, but not so much the travelling. This is pre-COVID where you're 5 days on site a week.
I suppose I found, so being a consultant in a previous life, I mean, even doing a bit of travelling now still, I think doing the odd bit of travelling is, I think it's quite exciting.
Yeah.
You go to a new location, but I suppose it's where you're sort of away for prolonged periods of time, weeks at a time.
Yeah,
I suppose that takes its toll.
Yeah, and I think in reality, I probably did it for over 4 years, being out and about.
Yeah.
I moved to another business called CoView, CoView Solutions, and my job there was a network engineer, so I was going into banks, so large high street banks, going in there doing like a kit swap out, so going in and swapping their Cisco equipment. So, a lot of that stuff as well had to be done out of hours. So, you drive up to Leeds for, to start a job at 4 p.m, which you're finishing at 10, and you're not getting home till quite late. And some people love that life, but for me, it was kind of like, I'm going to work when everyone's, at home. And
I suppose it's that difference, isn't it? I suppose so. For myself, the missus and I work pretty, I say, normal hours.
Yeah.
There's always the element of you work a few hours after at the end of the day, or you start a bit early, or maybe a weekend or so. But generally speaking, we're working at the same time, so that when we come home, we can spend time together.
Yeah.
As I suppose where you're talking about it, it's a case of, you're traveling for hours and hours at a time. You're spending days away from home, and then it's a case of when you do come back, well, everyone else is asleep, or they're out at work, or whatever else, is that mismatch.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's all about obviously get to a point where you kind of start focusing on work-life balance and and all that sort of stuff. Whereas like, do you live to work or do you work to live? All of that really.
Where would you put yourself?
I'm still kind of finding that balance. To be fair, because I think that kind of in recruitment, you kind of, your life tends to kind of merge. So yes, I'll do normal office hours, but I'm available out of hours. So if I've got to have a call, in the evening or in the morning with a candidate or a client, we have to make that flexible, just because my role is working around, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'd fit. But I think, in terms of kind of moving into this world, I never actually ever thought about getting into recruitment, to be fair.
Okay.
I think when I was doing, whenever I thought of recruitment, I just thought that, you apply for a job, someone reaches out, interviews, and then you get the job.
Yeah.
Great. I thought it was a really simple process. So initially I was going to move into IT sales.
Yeah.
So that's always where I kind of thought I'd move into. You kind of your large MSPs and your resellers. But then one of my friends was actually in recruitment, different industry, and he'd mentioned recruitment to me. So I thought, why not just have a look at it, explore it. And I actually contacted a company that had approached me a couple of weeks ago. About a networking role. But so I called him back and just said, you know what, I'm not looking at network roles, but have you got any recruitment roles? And that's it. 6 years later in the game.
It's an interesting one, because very similar to yourself. When you first look for a job, you kind of go, yep, I'm going to go onto Indeed or whatever these job websites are, and you search for your job on there. You go, yeah, I'll apply for that one, and that one. But you kind of have a very small lens as to what's being sold, almost the jobs which are being sold. And actually, when you start working with a recruitment agency, you kind of go, oh, actually, no, there's all this other stuff available, and then they can kind of speak to these organisations, figure out the role, get something tailored for you. I mean, I've had chats with businesses in the past, and it's having a recruiter with me takes out a lot of the headaches usually, because it's like arranging meetings, trying to get the information, the job, so it kind of works around you, as opposed to as a candidate trying to put in all this effort, and I suppose sometimes feeling that nothing comes of it because you don't get every job that you apply for, but having the recruiter in place kind of lessens that burden on you, so it feels like it's less of an impact, and you can carry on looking, and you can be a bit more spend a bit more time going through it and getting results.
Yeah, and some people, some people like recruiters, some don't, and that's absolutely fine. There's good and bad in every industry.
Yeah.
But I think, I'd like to say a large proportion, want to be successful, but they also want to give a good experience.
Yeah. So would you say, looking at recruiting there, you talk about work-life balance. Did you go into recruitment thinking, actually that means I can spend more time with the family, or was there something else that drove you to helping people get the jobs that they want?
I think it was a kind of mix of all of it, really, because as I said, wanting to go into the IT sales, that was, obviously tech focused.
Yeah.
There's people focused, whereas for me it's all about being able to kind of help people out in that respect. Help them find the jobs they want.
Yeah.
Help them on the other side, help the clients sort their issues out, headaches and that sort of thing. So there is that element, but also there is that element of being able to be home by 7 p.m. every night, which is quite nice sometimes. But yeah, there's a mix of it all, and I think that to be in recruitment, you've kind of got to be focused on various factors. You can't just be focused on cash, because if you're just following money, then you're not going to be giving a good service.
I suppose it's always kind of dehumanises that connection, which is now you're just thinking of that's a person which can make you money as opposed to that's a person you can help. And I suppose we'll talk on to some of my experience in a minute where we see some of that. But I can see that. I suppose you really need to have that level of, I suppose, compassion, empathy to a point to go, right, this person is about to go through a massive change in their life. Maybe not as stressful as moving house or having a kid, but
it's definitely up there.
It's up there as a role of, you are leaving the company you maybe stayed with for a longer period of time. Almost kind of feels like you're turning your back on them to a point. But actually, by moving, you maybe open up new doors. It's a new step in your career. So it's about moving for the right reasons. It's really.
And I think just before we say that, I think that's part of what I have to do is kind of understand those reasons.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the case that people want to move because X has happened in a company. Yeah. But they've not asked a question about it, or they've not done this or that. Yeah. So it's sometimes a case of me just speaking to them and just saying, so have you actually spoke to your line manager? Identifying that, it might not be the end of your career with this business. You could have a conversation and all will be great. So it's just a case of, being a bit of offering that right advice and being focused.
Do you find, so you've got these people that which will reach out to you and they might not have spoken to their line manager. When you're speaking with candidates, do you tend to find that within the businesses that they're part of, they have sort of like coaching and mentoring programs where people are helping them on that journey, or would you say it's very much a case of, the business kind of looks after the business's interests and maybe not on the individual? I suppose it'd be a varied bag, but
I think it completely depends on the size of the business. A lot of the time, if you look at your KPMGs and your consultancy businesses, your large scale organisations, obviously they'll have those in place, but your smaller businesses don't tend to have that, just down to, I don't know, could be cost or a need as well. They might not understand that this could be a viable role within the company, or they've maybe not got there yet in their process. So I think it's all about evolving, isn't it, and kind of changing the process and trying to get it better from my side, the candidate experience, but I suppose from the client side, it's about their journey as well.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff.
So we pretty much covered a large proportion of my life before recruitment. But yeah, in terms of yourself then, so I know I've spoke to you a couple of times on LinkedIn, and we've mentioned briefly off camera a bit about your role into tech. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so it's a weird one. So I would say my first proper job. You always have little jobs here and there, but I say first proper job because that's when you start. You look at your bank account and going, oh, you know what? I'm actually making a bit of money here. I'm making a couple of quid every hour here. That's really, really, really top notch. So, I started working probably from I want to say it's like 16, 17, typical paper round when you're younger, and then eventually I went through and got qualifications around being a British gymnastics coach.
Right.
So started off with trampolining, did some gymnastics coaching and so on. Not tech related whatsoever, but I did that for a couple of years, and it got to a point in my career where I'd gone through, did my A levels, didn't go as well as I'd hoped, and I was at a crossroads of where do I go, right? So one option was joining the army.
Right.
So looked at options over there. I would say it's probably lower down on the priority list, because my parents would always go, oh, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, mom's the same.
But in hindsight, it's something that I think I might have spent a bit more time thinking about. One of the other options was becoming a mechanic.
Right.
So there's a local Audi garage which had some mechanic jobs open for like junior people. And kind of my third option at that point was going to college, study engineering. So again, no real tech.
Right.
Outside of, I suppose, work and education, I enjoyed playing computer games and doing a bit of coding here and there. And actually, one of my A levels was computing, where we did Pascal and Delphi, which you don't really hear. I would say it's an older,
definitely
older language. But playing around with those type of things, and it's that enjoyed me. But for whatever reason, I didn't really draw the line of I can make a career out of doing that. I just thought, oh, that's just something I'll learn. And at the time, I was thinking, oh, I could go to university and do robotics. So I was looking at going to Aberystwyth University. Obviously, I didn't get the grades needed, and therefore that dream kind of got shot down before it started. But I eventually ended up going with the college route. Mm-hmm. So I started doing engineering there, and there's like a maths module, electronics module, and a multitude of other things. And then another opportunity came up, because although I enjoyed doing college, I kind of thought, oh, this is a bit easy. I want to be a bit more challenged. And I mean, granted, I was at week one of the course, so it's not going to be all singing or dancing by that point. Yeah. But being a younger version of myself, I didn't really give it the time. So I was looking around and went onto the Gov website and found some apprenticeships, and the visual apprenticeship popped up. So I applied for that, and weirdly I got rejected initially. Right. Mainly because I was on holiday. I missed the emails that had come through to go, yeah, your interview's lined up, therefore missed the interview. I was like, oh no, I'm on holiday. So I had to quickly get back in touch, and usually I'd kind of go, oh, it is what it is, I'll just leave it. But something kind of went, no, fight for this.
Chase that up.
Because there's something here. And it's tech in the sense of, it was talking about an IT support engineer. So again, I didn't really know what that was, but I thought, it's tech, I like computers, let's go for it. So I got in contact with them, got it all sorted. And in fact, I think it was Eddie, who's one of my colleagues, even still, who I ended up getting in contact with, and got my interview, went through the interview stages, got the job, and I started off as essentially a first-line support engineer. Yeah. So I dropped out my college course, so I stopped doing that. And weirdly, when I was on that course, one of the lecturers said that you'll never make a career in IT. There's better chances of getting jobs as an engineer as there is in IT, and that industry is probably not going to be around soon. Okay. Were they wrong? Anyway, so I left. I became a first-line support engineer. So think service desk. It's typical people. Someone phones up and goes, "Yeah, my computer's not working. Have you tried restarting?" There are reasons for that, but it's those type of things. My password needs reset, and so on. And I'll tell you what. You each one of those things you'd think is relatively straightforward and easy enough to sort out. But then what you don't realise is, what sits behind all of that. On-premises environments, Active Directory, I mean, it's kind of changed, gone through some rebranding, but all these different things which actually when you start working as an engineer, you start to go, oh, there's a lot of stuff here. And then you start working with other people in the industry, other people that you would never meet normally. You go, oh yeah, I just want a script to go through and create some groups or update membership. I'm like, what does that mean? Oh yeah, just PowerShell, just play. And I start playing around with PowerShell. Oh right, this is like a better version of what I was doing with Pascal and Delphi. And then you start opening the world to learning other languages, and you start looking at things like DAX in Power BI, which isn't necessarily, I would say, a programming language, but again, it's an application of skills that I've learned. And what you find out is, as part of that apprenticeship, you learn so much so quickly, and eventually you find yourself jumping into second line and third line, where you're taking on some more on incident management or sort of proactive infrastructure and so on. So I progressed through that, and I think during that time, sometimes you make mistakes and you can get a bit of a telling off, and other times you do some really good work and you get praised for it. And I think that's when it comes down to find out the right business for you. Do that research. If that's based from your side, it's about making sure that you do your research. You know why you're moving. You know why you're doing 100%. What you're doing. And for me, during that time, a lot of that was what I'd call natural progression, in the sense of going from first to third line. You're building out your skill set. You're building out connections, relationships with other people, and getting yourself to a point where you're showing success, you're showing promise, and then the business kind of rewards you for that. So I eventually got to a point of doing a load of techie stuff, very much in a reactive sense of someone phones over the problem, you resolve the problem, building out that wealth of knowledge. And then Alan, who is was one of the directors and owners of Visual, he brings me along and goes, oh Jay, we're doing this thing in sales, a bit of a transformation exercise to go through and look at our sales data, where we're making money, where we're not making money, all this sort of stuff. And although I wasn't necessarily going through and doing all the analysis, it was about how do you bring all that data together. So now it's an element of, I've got all this experience from kind of doing stuff and playing around, breaking things, failing, succeeding, all this sort of stuff. Now into a setting of, there's a project. There's a proper project here that I need to get my teeth into and figure out actually what works, what doesn't. And also, I'm now speaking with non-techie people more often.
Yeah. And
you're getting to this point of, like, I could talk at people about Power BI all day, every day. And they're probably, some people would love it, but if I'm speaking to maybe a CEO about it, they're probably going to go, right, you're obviously really passionate about Power BI, but how does that help me in the business? And when you start applying that sort of mindset of, I'm speaking with sellers who are, who ultimately you want them to provide better data, you want them to, you're kind of driving a data culture. How do you get to a point where they are thrilled about putting in the right data, thrilled to be part of the process, even though that ultimately some of this data could showcase that, right, yeah, you're underperforming in a certain area, and therefore you might need to change. And although that wasn't something that I had to deal with too much in terms of my role at that point, there's an element of, I need to have an understanding of how do people function in those environments. When you're working with the owner of the company day in, day out. And fortunately, I mentioned about coaching. Fortunately, I had Alan as a coach during that time, where we'd get into work maybe an hour early, walk through a whole load of stuff, and I'd learn a massive amount of information, which not many other people have the opportunity. They're very lucky and fortunate in that setting. But anyway, I go through, do this sales transformation, build out a bunch of reports, and some people love it, some people not so much. That's just the nature of change sometimes. But then we had a customer come in. So with this customer, they had an active project. There was something going wrong on the project, and Alan came to me and said, "Oh, do you want to jump in and have a look, have a go, see what you think about it?" And at the time, we had our data platform team, so I was like, yeah, I'll go in and support with that. Fortunately, the customer was quite local to Stafford. There's a train journey up to Stoke, and went there. And again, very different environment again, because weirdly, I was speaking to techie people, but now the output of my techie stuff had a real world business impact. And it was about, right, how do I balance all these different stakeholders? How do I figure out who does what and when? While also still being an expert at the technology. There's so many moving parts at that point where you're kind of going, oh, this works, this doesn't work, and also it's what I'd call a live environment. There's no real room to fail. Yes, you can fail to a point, but you don't want something to be critical where you lose a customer or you annoy someone or...
100%, because it's real world problems. Then,
real
isn't it?
world,
You're affecting the business and also, your, I suppose, your reputation as well in one respect.
And I suppose...
In some regards.
Yeah, and I suppose, you could argue that, well, surely you'd felt that way by working with the sales team in your company, but there's almost feels like there's a safety net there, where that company knows your journey. They know the path that you've gone on. If something goes wrong, well, it's not ideal, but there's routes forward to fix it. Let's say, for one of the things I'm very fortunate about for working with Visual, when you then start working with a customer, they don't know. They don't know what your history is, and I suppose from their perspective, at that point in time anyway, I would have been thinking, they're paying thousands of pounds a day for someone to come in to do a job. They expect quality. If I was paying someone to come in and do the flooring in my house, I expect quality. I want it to be really. I want it to be really good. The fact that they might be new on the job and they're not too familiar with the materials and it's their first go at doing it. There's an element of, well, I'm still paying for the output. I still want it to be good, and it's not my problem if they aren't performing as they should be. Again, that's my mindset back at that point in time. So I kind of put a load of pressure on myself to be good. And at one point there was a bit of a element of, am I going to sink or am I going to swim type thing? And there's some difficult situations, but fortunately I go through that, figure out how things work, and eventually we end up in a position where the project's going really well. And this is sort of 7 years ago now, 6-7 years ago. Weirdly, I met one of the project team from that project a few weeks ago. Right. They're moving on to a new role now, and they were going, we still use the system, still works really well, top-notch job, we're still doing reports off it. It's like, brilliant. That's a really cool success story. And then time went on from there, and eventually I got brought in as a consultant. So in Visual, we don't do functional consultant, technical consultant, those type of things. In other industries, you do. It's just kind of, you're a consultant, you do all of it. Yeah. Which is, I think, one of the nice things about Visual consultants.
I was just thinking, because obviously from your side of things as well, it allows you to obviously be a specialist, but also it kind of keeps you from getting bored. Or even kind of focused on one specific area.
Yeah, so there's I can't remember who it was now, but what one of my colleagues was saying, there's different types of people, personality types. There are different types of people in terms of their technical discipline. So you end up with kind of like triangle people, cone people, T people, and the T person is, if you think about it, you've got a line across the top. Yeah. That is kind of your breadth of technology, and then the line going down is your expertise. So a T person is they're an expert in one area. Yeah. And when I think of technical consultant, if I thought a technical consultant for Power Apps, I'd go, okay, they are an expert in Power Apps, but in terms of the other areas, they might not have had exposure to it. You then get triangle people, and triangle people are those where they have that expertise, but they have varying levels of expertise across multiple other technology areas. Yeah. And I think that's the sort of person that you get when you have to be not a generalist, but when you have to do everything. Kind of your point of, you're a specialist, but you stay relevant, you understand everything else that's going on. And then you get cone people, which are essentially still have that breadth, but the depth doesn't go as far. And I think those are the individuals where, they are more of a generalist, but think about like an enterprise architect where they need to know a lot. Well, they need to know a bit about everything because they need to build a bigger picture, but then they bring in the specialists to then go through and really add more depth to that skill set. So I found myself going from a specialist in terms of like infrastructure more than anything to then building out these other strands of learning about data and so on. And weirdly, my first proper consulting job was flying up to Glasgow, spending, I think it was 2 weeks there.
Nice.
never working away from home before, to then run training courses on using DAX in Power BI. So again, never really run training courses before.
Right.
I've done bits of Power BI because I've been doing that for a long period of time, but very much in terms of my own personal learning. And I'd never really done loads in the way of consulting. So I didn't really know the best way of tackling it. Unfortunately, my team, my line manager at the time, gave me some advice and guidance. But went up there, did the session, went really well. And you start looking at the technology around those side of things. Yes, I'm going in there and talking about things like Power BI, but you've got things like Teams now which are available. At the time, it was Skype for Business, if you remember that. So you're fortunate I could just quickly contact my line manager to go, I'm talking about this, what do you think? Can I have some guidance? Or Outlook, I can send a quick email. Microsoft Learn was, I think, becoming a bit more of a thing as well. So I could then start linking through to some of these articles. So again, tech is starting to play a bit more part. And kind of where I've gone from that journey of being a trampoline coach to doing a bit of coding in the background, and that's about it, to now going, I know tech, I like tech, and I'm actually now focusing that into data is something that I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
So looking at Power BI and so on. And then, that just progressed naturally to a point of becoming a bit more senior in the team, leading my own team, being a principal and so on. And essentially getting to a point where, I'm starting to manage people. And when we talk about the motivational side of things at the start, there's an element of, well, why am I doing that? Why am I jumping from job to job in the same business, job to job? Why bother? And to start off with, it's a case of I naturally got pushed along because of my experience. I mean, when you look at that from a management perspective, it's kind of called accidental management. But in that setting, it was a case of I was getting more experience. So I was moving up the job ladder, essentially. Of course. Then moving into different parts of the business, I was kind of being pulled along because someone saw value in me. And they went, you know what? Yeah, there's a job for you over here. We want you to be doing this because you're going to be useful. And then I was getting to a point of I no longer had people pushing me along or pulling me along. I had to be the push and the pull. And when I started looking at sort of more management positions, for me, I started thinking about, what actually motivates me? One of the things I found was it was seeing other people succeed.
Right.
And being part of that journey. And when I started looking after the BizApps team within Visual, before acquisition into Node4 and so on, it was about I'm going to bring in people into the team who have demonstrated that they understand tech, but they are also understanding that it's a continuous journey and it's a journey that they want to be driving to achieve more in. And where I can help them is being that mentor and giving them some of my experience, that guidance and so on to make them succeed. And I've had a few people join the team. We started off with a bunch of contractors, but then we brought in full-time employees. Now they're in a position of, they've been in the company for a number of years. They're doing really, really well. I think some of them have. One of them is moving off to a new role, just for career development and so on. Yeah. So now getting to a point where I've got people who are kind of working for me, who are showing real success, striving to be the best that they can be, and really rewarding for me. And the fact I see that is, it helps me kind of get up in the morning to go, I'm not just doing this because I'm getting a paycheck. I'm doing this because there are people who have a real world impact. And when you start taking that more so, and you look at some of the projects, we were doing work with one of our NHS colleagues where, there's it's a pretty dark topic, but something called FGMIS, so female genital mutilation.
Right.
Pretty horrific, right? But, we are bringing in technology which helps prevent that, provide early visibility, and therefore you're now having a real world impact on real women and girls of varying ages, which now means that they're going to have a better standard of living. That's pretty rewarding. And the fact tech can allow that to happen, amazing. We were doing some work recently, and we were on the BBC.
Cool.
I can't remember exactly who it was now. I want to say West Mercia, but the premise around that was we were helping, it was essentially bringing together intelligence packages to help out or to prevent crime affecting vulnerable kids, essentially. And again, this is an application of technology that has a real world impact. It's helping people, those kids now can grow up and potentially follow in the same steps that I've done. Maybe not in terms of technology, but in terms of they now have a life ahead of them.
Yeah, a chance.
A chance. And, you then start thinking about, actually, the motivational factors here is not only can I help people directly, but now by bringing in solutions that impact real world people that have real world outputs, well, that's really valuable, And if we can do that at a good cost or good price, and this is where the seller's side comes into it, where I've now moved into a more of a pre-sales role. It's a case of, right, I'm not here to go buy this thing off me because I want the money. That is.
Yeah. It's a byproduct, isn't it?
It's byproduct. If I can come in and suggest here's a solution for you that's going to have this impact against your business for whatever reason, or it's going to have a real world impact and actually help people in their day-to-day lives, then yeah, the solution costs money because you have to pay for a license. We have to get someone out there to do the work. Like, these are things that they just have to happen. But what you know for sure by working with Node 4 is that you're going to get people who care, that aren't going to be there to scumbag you and rip you off, that are going to give you a product and a service, knowing that that's going to have a real world impact. And when you work with public sector organisations where it's government money, so essentially we're kind of paying for it through our taxes. It's about how do you make the most of that to make sure that it has a proper real world impact. Around Stafford, there's a lot of potholes. There's a lot of road.
I think that's just everywhere, isn't it, at the moment?
There's a lot of roadworks going on and so on. There's an element of, should a pothole really matter? Well, to a point in which it makes the general standard of living better, makes everyone feel a bit happier in the area, that work's being done, that people are actually listening to the challenges. It's a little thing, but also putting on, events for kids in the evening at clubs or whatever. That's going to help them have a better social life, or putting on events in the park and doing the elements there. Then we did in staff, there's a pride parade.
Cool.
Which is, although I wasn't involved in it, it's something that people can see a load of value, and it's an opportunity for them to express themselves and so on. It's those type of things which kind of makes us human, and is what pushes people along day to day. If we all sat in, I'm going to say, rooms like this, day in, day out, it'd be pretty boring.
It'd be boring. We'd lose our marbles, to be fair. And I think,
exactly.
I think a couple of things you're talking about, obviously kind of resonate, and I think it's really good to see. Obviously, there's more to it than profit. There's obviously the technology involved, which is a passion. There's elements where we're using tech for good, which is what it should be used at, really.
Definitely.
That's one of the interests. I was having to think actually of a couple of things that you've talked about. I suppose, kind of going back to, you've mentioned, you started in gymnastics as a coach, you've gone into IT support and dealt with, I've been on the other end of the phone, I've been on this side and on the other side as well.
Yeah.
I suppose, do you think that's helped your journey at all? And I suppose how do you think that's actually helped?
Yeah,
if it has?
So I think when you first start off in any career, you kind of start off with nothing, apart from your own kind of what drives you on a day to day. To start off with, it was money for me because I was living with my parents. I wanted to move out, just had my girlfriend, all this sort of stuff. It's like I just need money to do stuff. The fact that initial drive has said, that means I need a job, and I've gone away and gotten a job. At that point, that money element is still sort of a factor, but then they start building up a load of experience. I think being a coach, you're getting from a point of, from my side, I'm coaching, kids from the ages of, I can't even, probably let's say 5 through to probably 18, right? You're working with kids from a variety of different ages, variety of different backgrounds. you start to understand about, people with learning disabilities. How do you ensure that you're being inclusive and making sure that they can take part in the different activities which are taking place? You then think about, you can actually see in people around when they think they're failing, and actually being able to go, you know what, I'm going to push you forward because I know that you can do more. And then they come back the next week and they're doing somersaults and whatever else, and it's like, brilliant, I can really see success. I think that first part of it is what probably set the spark off. I enjoy seeing people succeed, right? And if I can have an impact in that, great. When it came to the support engineer side of things, I then became kind of the mentee in a setting of, I'm not there teaching people to do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm being taught myself. And I think being in that teacher position initially made me go, actually, I know what this person's trying to do. I'm going to push myself to make sure that I'm kind of accountable to them and I'm being the best that I can be. And I always remember this. There was and hopefully you won't mind me calling him out, but there was one of my colleagues, a guy called Danny Whale. He later became a consultant and he's gone off to other organisations now. But I remember one time as an apprentice, he was asking me to do X, Y, and Z, and I snapped at him. I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing that, whatever else." And he just said, "Look, do whatever you want, mate, because we're here to do a job. We've got a goal that we need to achieve, but ultimately it's up to you what you want to do. So I've got a load of experience. I want to give it to you. If you don't want it, I won't waste my time." And it was like, okay, no, I just need to reel myself back in. I was obviously quite stressed in the moment and go, he is here to teach me. He is here to tell me. And don't get me wrong, when I was a coach, there would have been times where kids kind of gone, "Oh, I can't do it," and has gone a bit of a grump, and then they've come back and gone, "I want to give it another go." And I think when people come back and say, "You know what, I can do in the wrong, I want to give it another go," you kind of go, "Yeah, I've got a load of respect for you now. Let's crack on with it. Let's do the move. Let's learn the bit of tech." So I think going through those processes kind of gets you learning about what does a mentor-mentee relationship look like, or a coach and coachee-pupil relationship looks like. And when you start learning that dynamic, it starts getting to a point of, I now really want to strive myself. Because one of the other things I look at, you would have noticed that when I came in on my bag, I've got my Spartan badges, and there's a Hyrox badge which I need to fess. That's my wife's now. I didn't want to get my own, and that'll be next year when we head off to Malaga.
Cool.
Which would be fun. But with all of that, it's a case of I could just stop at any point and go, I can't be bothered with that. I'm going to leave it. But there was it was another podcast, and I can't remember if it was The Debrief, which is like ex-military people talking about it. It might have even been Dr. Mike from I think it's like RP Hypertrophy, sort of talking through a few bits and pieces. But the element there was, you're accountable to your previous self. And going back a year, I got a personal trainer or coach to guide me through some difficult times, thinking that I needed them to be accountable to them. And eventually I got to a point of, why am I accountable to them? They're not benefiting from the work that I'm putting in. So when I think of this from like a support engineer perspective or into a consultant perspective, it's a case of, yesterday's Jay, he's putting loads of work so that you can be where you are today.
Yep.
So you're going to let that person down by failing today or not putting in the effort that you need to. Well, no, I'm going to put in as much effort as I can, because then tomorrow's Jay, when he looks back, he's going to go, well, he's putting a load of work to get to where he is. And if you have that mentality, you're always pushing yourself forward. You're never kind of standing still and letting time wash over you, which unfortunately I see with some people, where they don't really have that drive to do it. And I think it's all unique and to the individual. And again, you don't know what's going on in their lives and whatever else. But from my view, it's all about you're accountable to yourself. That's what's going to push you forward. And kind of direct answer to your question there is, being a coach, being a support engineer, those early days definitely form the foundation to what I'm doing today. Because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't build those routines in place, that discipline in place to succeed at my day-to-day.
Yeah, and also, to be honest, it sounds like some of the soft skills will have definitely helped as well.
Yeah.
Now on customer site, previous to that, obviously, you've gained a lot of skills via gymnastics and the sport roles. Whether that's kind of being empathetic, understanding someone's problem to then provide a solution.
It was interesting, a bit of an awakening actually, probably in the last year or so. So I've always thought that I'm not very empathetic.
Right.
And the reason for that is I always think that I have a goal in mind, and that goal is my priority. And if it means that other people fall by the wayside in my pursuit of the goal, then so be it. And I had a bit of an awakening a few years ago when Rich, one of the other co-owners of Original, kind of took me aside and said, look, Jay, some people might not like the way that you're doing things. Just think about how your actions might impact them. I was like, okay, I'll take that on board and I'll make sure that I feel. And I didn't really know kind of maybe what he meant by that, like what am I doing specifically. And I went home and had a chat with my wife about it. And she was just saying that sometimes you get so fixated on something that is success. And maybe what you should do is think about how you can make that goal a common goal, or understand how other people are affected by it. So I started applying that, and I've been applying that for a couple of years. And that could be getting opinions from other people, getting their viewpoints, doing a bit like a 360 feedback to see what people think about me and so on. And then working with those individuals, a mentor and a coach. Jeff Abram, who used to be my line manager, sterling guy, like an amazing boss who gives loads of advice and guidance. Yeah. He helped me through a load of those aspects and gave me those opportunities. And on my university course a year ago, we jumped into a session. We were talking about EQ and I. So all about emotional intelligence and so on. And one of the aspects of that is empathy. And I said, look, I don't think I'm too empathetic. And someone chimed up in the class and said, what do you mean? I think you're really empathetic. You've talked about my problems, you've helped me understand them, I've provided you guidance, you've been open, you've listened, and we've got a collaborative way forward. Yeah. So obviously, whatever I've done during that time has helped me through that journey. And those softer skills, coming in as a coach, you are in a perceived reality of I'm more important. I'm telling you what to do. It's my way or the highway. Again, this is me from years and years ago. You then get a bit of a realization of you're not the top dog. You're kind of bottom of the pecking order. You need to learn. You need to develop, and you're building loads of techie skills at that point. As you go through and do more consulting, you start to realize, right, these are people that I'm speaking to, not just a phone call, not just an email. And I need to work on actually how do I engage and handle those elements. And in fact, there's we ran some consulting workshops at the time around commercial awareness and so on. Although commercial awareness sounds like a bit of a boring topic, you start to appreciate how does change impact businesses? How do individuals react to your decision-making processes? Making sure that if you're going to tell someone you're going to do something, give them an update on it. If things change, tell them early, all this sort of stuff. All those skills build up to mean that I can be successful at what I'm doing today. And undoubtedly, and this is the really key thing to know is, although I've learned that stuff today, there's still a load more to learn. My view is that at some point in time, I want to, really two main objectives. One, be an elite level, athlete-wise.
Right.
To work on my skills within Hyrox, which is one of the elements I'm looking at. That's a bit of an aspirational goal.
Yes.
And the reality is that there may be certain hoops I need to jump through to get to be that top level. For me, it's more so being the peak of what I can do, which means I need to be kind of comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Probably 9 times out of 10. But to get
to
I've
that
seen
point.
some of those Hyrox challenges. I've seen one at the NEC, I'm sure, before.
Yeah.
They travelled throughout the UK.
Yeah, there's a few of them, but they are, I think anyone can do them, but can anyone do them at a fast pace? Or there's different exercises which you can do unbroken, and so there's loads of challenges to it. So that's one, and the other one is being a CTO.
Cool.
And you think being a CTO, right? Well, what does that mean to me? For me, it's being that leader within the business who can help guide the effective use of technology. That's one aspect of it, but also being someone who individuals look up to go, you know what, I can see Jay's journey, I can see the value in that, I can see how that can impact me on a day-to-day, and I want to see him as someone who can help me achieve my own goals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why I see that role as CTO might be the wrong title for it, but it's that sort of route that I want to get onto. To get to that point, I need to build out, kind of like when you're building out a business, build awareness of who I am, build credibility of what I can do. That takes time, but also speaking with different types of people. And what I mean by that is different roles, different skill sets, different backgrounds, you know, understanding why people do the things that they do at a much broader level, and working with people in those roles to understand what does it mean to them to do what they're doing. And one of the things I have found is accidental management is a real thing, where people go, I've been in the role for 5-10 years, so I'm a manager now. And there's a really good post that my wife reposted on LinkedIn this morning, actually. And it was talking about how some people think that you have to be a certain age to have a certain job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So say, you know, up until the age of 27, you should be a junior, whatever. And then when you get to the age of 50 to 60, you should be a director of a company.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, but surely that's down to like your experience and so on. And if we followed that, again, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'd probably be a third line engineer or a consultant or whatever. It's about how do you drive yourself, how you strive to be more. And I think it's an element of, you know, if they've been able to understand the people that create those charts who think that's the right thing to do, and understanding that here's how we can change that way of thinking. And I think being that CTO as well is someone who can enact change and get people to support that change. Saying you're just going to do something and everyone goes, yeah, fine, cool, that sounds good, and then nothing happens, that's not really a leader in my eyes. That's just someone who's saying, here's a task. It's about how do you actually enact that change to make sure it sticks.
Yeah, and I think that kind of tech is one of the places that I suppose is doing things a little bit different. You know, you do see things where, you know, startups or whatever, and you've got, you know, people that are really young that have got really good experience in one specific vertical, or, you know, and they're able to kind of grow that or build that out to then enable them to be in a position much earlier than the perceived should be. So, you know, you're in a good position to be able to do that, I think. But I think being that kind of CTO, and, you know, from when I'm speaking to CTOs and those types of people, a lot of them would kind of class themselves as enablers. Yes. You know, would that be enabling, you know, the business to adopt certain technologies or anything like that for them to then enable growth?
And there's I had a chat with a prospective customer yesterday, and although not a CTO per se, they were, I think, a director of data, something similar. It's exactly that point around enabling, which is they've seen that within the business there's a need to use data, and that presently the business doesn't see the value in using data. Okay, albeit they brought in a director of data, whatever. But their role is to go, right, how do we build a data culture? How do we use the right technology to get to this endpoint? How do we make sure that aligns to our wider strategic goals and so on? You know, that's kind of where I see an aspect of the CTO's role, I suppose. That's what you're seeing with your candidates. Or,
yeah, 100%. Well, on both sides really, and, you know, I'm having a lot of conversations throughout, you know, just generally, whether that be to understand the market, to understand what's going on in the tech space, from a business development perspective, and again from a candidate perspective, because, you know, people move at all levels, right? And obviously the level that I work at, it is predominantly kind of management, you know, up to kind of director level, and I think that's where, you know, the most change can happen, and it's also one of the areas that I suppose when you look at things, people are generally really serious about what they're looking to do, right? You know, you don't tend to move as frequently, unless, I suppose, in a contract role, which sometimes
you see that,
you know, like, you know, fractional CTOs and kind of interim heads of which is, you know, generally brought in to do some of this initial enablement, you know, and I suppose deal with some of the backlash that they might get from the perceived change, and then often followed by a perm person to come in and be like, you know, now change has happened, steady the ship. So there's loads of different levels and different aspects around that kind of change. But I think in tech it's happening all the time, right? And I think businesses are slowly adopting moving more into tech-driven businesses.
Yeah, and I suppose, and this is probably a good opportunity to segue into why we're working together. You know, so again, for the benefits of the viewers, you know, Adam engaged with me over LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Started talking about a few ways in which how we can work together. Had a few different calls, and I think essentially there's a bit of an experimentation going on in terms of, is it going to work? Isn't it going to work? I think the view is that you've got quite a strong recruitment background. You've got a good network of people to speak with, and you talk about, you know, you're working with these people who like to enact change. You like to make sure that they understand why they're moving into the roles that they're moving into, understand the industry that they're in, and so forth. And from my perspective, it's about, you know, I'm working with a similar group of people, but about how they can help apply that change through technology.
Yeah.
And with some of the experience that I've got. And I suppose theoretically, the view is that taking our unique approaches, albeit linked with technology, we can then bring in other people to go, right, hello, so-and-so, what challenges you're facing, or talk to me about your career and all these elements. And then starting to figure out, actually, how does technology impact them on a day-to-day? What are the common challenges that they're facing? What do they see in the industry at the moment? You know, I suppose this isn't just a technology podcast. It's more about people, change, transformation.
Yeah.
And that'll evolve. That'll evolve with time. And
yeah, exactly. And that will change with people that we speak to as well, because, you know, ideally it'd be about understanding each person's journey, each person's what they're going through currently, what they have done, their experiences, what they want to get into, where they see the world of technology or their specific field going into as well. And obviously that's going to evolve over time, as you know, as technology is evolving as well. So hopefully we can evolve with that as well. But you know, I think that'll be seen as we get on. But I think it's all really positive and all really good to bring, I suppose, our two fields together in the fact that, you know, we're both on different sides of the fence, but we've got a kind of common goal in the fact that, you know, it's about, you know, whether that be education or whether it be, I suppose, just kind of being able to kind of help people understand various routes into technology or into the next role, really.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant, lovely stuff. I think that's a good way. That's a good way to bring the podcast to an end. And I think it'd be great if people had thoughts and feelings around how they can engage with the topics that they want us to talk about.
100%.
So it's worth thanking, I suppose, your business as to letting us use the room for doing the podcast.
No worries.
No
worries, absolutely great. Well, exactly what you said. Any ideas, suggestions, more than happy to take anything on board. And if anyone wants to get involved, just shoot a message over.
Brilliant, lovely stuff.
Perfect.
Cool.
Great. That was interesting.